Hello, and welcome back to Seekers and Wrestling. Today we're going to be talking about the R-Truth Carlito releases, and we'll try and be as balanced as possible with it. I see a lot of agitation online about the releases, what it symbolises, what it means, and how it makes people feel, etc. Which I think are all valid points. I think we're all fans at the end of the day. We're all fans of individuals, and I think these are. Well, at least one of them, I think, are an individual that's resonated with quite a lot of people, so I'm very sensitive to that. Cards on the table, I'm not a massive fan of R-Truth, so I'm coming at it from maybe a different angle than many other people online are. That said, I like R-Truth. I don't love R-Truth. His comedy bits leave a lot to be desired for me, so that's a subjective point of view. That said, I respect him as a wrestler, as an athlete. He's phenomenal. Still delivers in the ring for the most part. I think his age, he is the age is 53. I don't think that particularly is relevant, but I think for the conversation we're having, it might play into it slightly. And for Carlito, he was re-signed 2 years ago. Has mostly been doing square root of nothing. Whereas R-Truth has been slightly used more recently. He had a horrific injury a year or two ago when competing down in NXT for a little bit. He was off for about a year rehabbing his knee. Came back to sort of dovetail into Judgment Day storylines when Damian and Rhea were still in it. Won the tag titles last year at WrestleMania 40. And for the most part, he's a comedic character. That's what he is. Carlito, since he re-signed, has been used as a comedic character. I don't think there's any coincidence in the fact that these two have been released. These senior pros have been released at the same time when they have a similar sort of character offering. That might play into it as well. So we'll go into the sort of whys. I mean, look online, it's perceived as incredibly harsh. And it probably is. It's a harsh release strategy. Seemingly, the facts are that their contracts were up for renewal or due to be renewed in the next week or two, and for whatever reason they couldn't come to an agreement, or they were told we're not going to renew their contract. That still has yet to be decided. I think there's been a lot of opinionated takes without sort of laying down the facts that it's not a release as such, as more than just a lack of contract renewal. And I do think that fact is particularly important to remind people of. I do feel it's slightly less harsh to just having the contract not renewed. Another point I've written down here is were they selling merch? Because this is ultimately a business move, and I would imagine R-Truth would sell more merch than Carlito. I don't know the merch numbers. I couldn't find any facts online to confirm or corroborate that. But I would imagine they're not selling a hell of a lot of merch. Just a personal take. R-Truth had a new shirt out last week as a result of Saturday night's main event, the sort of John Cena parody one. And I'm sure that did alright. But he doesn't have a regular shirt on sale that does box office numbers. Otherwise, to be honest with you, he would probably still be employed. He would probably still have his contract renewed. So I think that's a safe assumption to make. I don't want to sound harsh, but would that shirt have sold on the back of R-Truth, or would it have sold because it was a John Cena parody shirt? I'm not sure. Sorry, that might be a harsh take, but it's probably slightly based in fact. And again, I'm not trying to come across as an R-Truth hater or a Carlito hater either. I like both of them for the most part. But there are probably more exciting people I would love to see on my screen more. So that's the take I'm coming at. Apologies if that offends people, but it's true. Like I said, I mentioned the age at the beginning. I don't know if the age plays a part as such. It shouldn't. They can still go in the ring. I think both look incredibly cut. I mean, I'm not going to look that good when I'm their age. And they can move more agile than I ever will be. But what it is, this is what it's going to dovetail onto my sports team analogy. I think for whatever reason, TKO, the Triple H regime, the Nick Khan regime, they are operating WWE much more like a sports franchise, a sports team. Name your sport, name it baseball, rugby, football. Cuts happen. Young footballers get cut, senior pros get cut, or contracts not renewed at the end of the seasons. It happens. The reality is that their team or the management team will look at it. They'll weigh up what they want to do over the next 12 months. Do these bodies have a role to play in that team, or is it better to cut them and let them go elsewhere to make their living? And I think that's ultimately what's happened here, as harsh as that is. That's the reality of sports team management, and I think that's how they're certainly managing it. The other thing to mention, I think, I've seen comments saying this would never happen under Vince McMahon's regime. I mean, I can't think of a more selective memory loss there. Cuts happened all the time under Vince, under much more personal circumstances than these two, and others that have happened this year have been. As harsh as it is, and the numbers that have been cut, and that will be as a result of sort of bulk roster intakes. So there's an argument to be made there that maybe they took on too many in direct competition with AEW, no doubt. But I think there's an argument there. But at the same time, cuts happen. It happens all the time. I'm a football fan. It happens all the time at the end of the season, and maybe that's why people are jarred, because we've been so accustomed to it happening post-Mania, similar to the end of the football season, when cuts happen and contracts are not renewed, and people are free to be released and go elsewhere. And I think that's maybe what's jarring with people with this. But nevertheless, the revisionist history that's gone on, I think, with some of the comments over this, I don't like that. Those sort of takes where they say, "Oh, this would never." I know that's an argument in general with WWE at the moment, where a lot of people say this wouldn't have happened under Vince, or things were better under Vince. And I'm thinking, oh god, let's not go down that route, because let's go watch a Raw from 3 or 4 years ago. I think I've said it in a previous video. Go watch a Raw 3 or 4 years ago, and then come back to me and say, would you rather that show, or would you rather the show we get now? Because with its flaws and all, the product is so much better nowadays than it was back then, and I'll fight anyone on that. We'll have a proper debate. So I think that's it in a nutshell for me. I think there's an element, with these cuts or allegedly, I think I've read Sean Ross Sapp at Fightful say that these are due to NXT call-ups probably coming soon to replace them on the roster, therefore they needed space on the roster. I mean, that excuse doesn't really fly with me too much, because Carlito was in a faction sort of are superfluous to roster placings and stuff. It seems weird to me, that excuse, especially because there's veterans backstage that seemingly just wander around not doing a lot for months on end, and then they get called in to do, I don't know, say a Money in the Bank qualifier, and then they lose, and then they go back to catering for a few months, or so anyway, long story short, they couldn't come to an agreement on a contract, or one wasn't offered, and they're released. That's the end of it. I'm sorry to see them go. It does resonate that a lot of people feel very connected to R-Truth specifically, but Carlito as well, and the non-renewal of their contracts. I understand totally that if this was someone I was more of a fan of, such as, I don't know, Finn Balor or AJ Styles, being released in this way, I'd be way more upset and way more agitated, like a lot of people online are. So that's subjective, and I think that's totally valid. I do think it highlights a wider problem with WWE at the moment, there's a disconnect with the fan base and the people running it. It's probably never felt so corporately run before, and it's a change from the norm in terms of the feel of the thing and the feel of releases coming in such a way. But it is nothing new either, so I think that's important to remember. This is just not, I don't want to say business, should I say, but this happens. This is reality of sports team management, and this, in this case, this is what this is. I've seen a lot of comments that this wouldn't have happened under Vince, like I said before, and TKO ruining the product, and some of it's valid, but then again, it isn't. Vince released people. He personally released people as well for trivial reasons sometimes. I mean, do we mention CM Punk's release back in 2014 when he was legitimately not well, complained about it and the doctors, and was seemingly fired on his wedding day as a result? Anyway, we won't go down that road. But this does feel more business orientated rather than personal. So again, it's important not to conflate the two. And speaking of these two individuals, like those that were released in April, the batch release with Braun Strowman and Dakota Kai and so forth. It is, for whatever reason it is, whether it's the age, whether it's the wage that they couldn't agree with, or whether it's just value for money in terms of the individual, it's the decision that these two were dispendable, or they needed to be cut for, in very similar terms to a footballer, being cut from a team to make room for others who they can feel they can get more value from. As harsh as that is, look at any sport in the world and that's exactly what happens. So I think, without making sort of a rant about it, it is frustrating to see so much criticism. And I do wonder how many people who are moaning online bought merch from these two people, or were super fans of these people and tuned in every week to see their shtick or their stuff. Probably more of an argument for R-Truth, but I do feel that a lot of selective hate, or whatever the phrase is, selective outrage. And I know it sounds harsh, and believe me, I don't like uttering the words either, but not only is it nothing new, it's something every sports team does. And like I said, as wrestling fans, maybe we have to adjust to more than just the post-Mania cuts going forward. It is what it is. But anyway, thank you for listening. Please leave me a like or subscribe, or a comment in the comment section if you agree or probably disagree with what I've just said. But I feel like it was a take I had and I needed to sort of get out of my system. But thank you for listening, and yes, see you next time. Bye.